So, colonialism is a simple idea with very complex results. Imagine, if you will, a powerful country going to another faraway land and just taking control. That, in essence, is what colonialism is all about. The stronger country, which we call the colonizer, decides it wants to rule the other land, which then becomes a colony. They do this mainly to use the colony's resources, like its land, its people, and all its valuable goods. The colonizer doesn't really ask for permission. Instead, they use their strength, whether that's military power or advanced technology, to establish control. This whole system is based on the idea that one nation is somehow superior and has the right to govern another for its own benefit and profit. But you know, this control isn't just about politics or government. It seeps into every part of life in the colony. The colonizing power changes the laws, the economy, and even the culture of the people living there. They often impose their own language, their religion, and their way of doing things. The local people lose their freedom to make their own choices about their future. Their own traditions and systems, which may have existed for centuries, are often pushed aside or even destroyed completely. The real goal of the colonizer is always to make the colony serve the needs of the home country, not the needs of the local population. Think of it honestly, like someone coming into your house and deciding they're now the boss. They start telling you what to cook, what furniture to use, and where you're allowed to go in your own home. They might even take things from your house to sell for their own profit. This is exactly what happened to so many countries around the world, and India is one of the most significant examples. For nearly 200 years, Britain controlled India. This period completely reshaped the Indian subcontinent, leaving a deep and lasting mark that's still visible in many ways today, long after the colonizers have left. The story of colonialism is, at its core, a story of power and inequality. It's the tale of how one nation's ambitions can change the destiny of another. It involves trade, conquest, and the slow transfer of wealth from the colonized to the colonizer. Understanding this basic concept is the first step to really understanding the long and complicated history between India and Britain. It helps us see why certain things happened and why the world map looks the way it does. This historical process wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate system of control and exploitation. The British didn't arrive in India with a big, grand plan for conquest right from the start. Their journey actually began with trade, not territory. In the year 1600, a group of English businessmen formed what became known as the East India Company. They got permission from the Queen of England to trade in Asia. Their main interest was in spices, silk, cotton, and other valuable goods that were found in abundance in India. At that time, India was a wealthy and powerful land, ruled by the Mughal Empire. The British were just one of many European groups, like the Portuguese and the Dutch, who came to India to do business. They were seen as merchants, not as future rulers. But over time, this relationship started to change from simple trade to something much more complex. The Mughal Empire, which had been very strong, began to weaken in the 18th century. This created a power vacuum, with many smaller Indian kingdoms fighting for control. The East India Company saw this as an opportunity. It started building its own private army, hiring Indian soldiers known as sepoys. The company used this army to protect its trading posts, but soon enough, it began using it to take sides in local conflicts, supporting one Indian prince against another, just to gain more influence and land. A key turning point came with the Battle of Plassey in 1757. In this battle, the East India Company, led by Robert Clive, defeated the Nawab of Bengal. This victory was achieved not just through military strength, but also through trickery and betrayal. After this win, the company gained enormous wealth and political power over a huge part of India. It was no longer just a trading company. It had become a ruling power. It collected taxes, made laws, and controlled the lives of millions of Indians. This really marked the beginning of British rule in India, a rule by a corporation interested only in profit. The final step came after the Great Indian Rebellion of 1857. Many Indians, including soldiers and civilians, rose up against the increasingly aggressive and unfair rule of the company. The rebellion was fierce, but was eventually crushed by the British. After this, the British government decided that the East India Company could no longer be trusted to manage such a vast territory. In 1858, the British Crown took direct control. India became officially part of the British Empire, and the Queen of England became the Empress of India. The traders had gone, and the imperial rulers had arrived. The British often claimed their rule brought progress and civilization to India, and, well, it's true that they did introduce some major changes. One of the most famous examples is the railway system. The British built thousands of kilometers of railway tracks all across the subcontinent. This network connected distant parts of India like never before, making it easier to travel and to transport goods. While the primary reason was to help the British Army move quickly and to ship raw materials to the ports for export, the railways did end up helping Indians too. It helped unite the country physically and even played a role in fostering a sense of a single Indian identity among people from different regions. However, these developments came at a very high price for the Indian people and their economy. Before the British, India was a major producer of high-quality finished goods, especially textiles. Indian cotton fabrics were famous all over the world, but the British colonial rulers systematically destroyed this industry. They wanted India to be a supplier of raw cotton for their own factories back in Britain. They imposed heavy taxes on Indian textiles to make them expensive, while flooding Indian markets with cheap machine-made cloth from England. This policy ruined millions of Indian weavers and artisans, turning what was once a manufacturing nation into an agricultural colony. The impact on agriculture was just as devastating. The British changed land ownership laws, which often favored powerful landlords and moneylenders over the small farmers who actually worked the land. They forced farmers to grow cash crops like indigo and cotton, which could be sold for profit in Britain instead of food crops like rice and wheat that were needed to feed the local population. This focus on profit over people's needs led to terrible famines. When droughts or floods happened, there were no food reserves, and millions of Indians starved to death while grain was still being exported from their shores. So, while you can see physical structures like railways, bridges, and administrative buildings, it's crucial to look deeper. The economic story of colonialism is really one of draining wealth from India to Britain. Prominent historians estimate that Britain drained trillions of dollars from India over the course of its rule. This wealth was used to fund Britain's own industrial revolution and build its empire across the globe. The so-called benefits of colonialism, like the railways, were largely incidental. They were tools designed to make the exploitation of India more efficient, and any positive effects for Indians were really just a side effect, not the main goal. The desire for freedom from British rule grew steadily throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Indians were tired of being treated as second-class citizens in their own country. They were weary of the economic exploitation that kept them in poverty. This growing dissatisfaction gave birth to the Indian independence movement, which was a long and difficult struggle. Early leaders called for more rights and representation within the British system. But as time passed, the demand shifted to a call for complete independence, or Purna Swaraj. The movement brought together people from all walks of life, students, lawyers, farmers, and workers, united by a common goal. The movement gained immense strength under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi in the 1920s. Gandhi introduced a powerful and unique method of protest non-violent civil disobedience, or satyagraha. He urged Indians to resist British laws peacefully. He led famous campaigns like the Salt March, where thousands walked to the sea to make their own salt, defying the British salt tax. Other great leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and Subhas Chandra Bose also played crucial roles, each contributing in their own way to the fight for freedom. The struggle involved mass protests, boycotts of British goods, and immense personal sacrifice from countless freedom fighters. After the end of World War II, the British Empire was weakened. It no longer had the resources or the political will to hold on to India. The continuous pressure from the Indian independence movement had made it clear that their time was up. After long negotiations, the British government agreed to grant India its independence. Tragically, this freedom came with a painful division. The country was partitioned into two independent nations, India and Pakistan, in August 1947. This partition led to widespread violence and one of the largest mass migrations in human history, leaving a deep scar on the subcontinent. Looking back, the experience of colonialism taught India many important lessons. It showed the importance of self-reliance and the need to build a strong democratic nation where power rests with the people. It highlighted the dangers of division and the necessity of unity in a country as diverse as India. The struggle for freedom left a legacy of resilience, reminding future generations of the price paid for their liberty. While colonialism left behind deep economic and social problems that India continues to grapple with, it also forged a strong national identity and an unwavering commitment to sovereignty and independence on the world stage.